I'm here with Catherine Wedd, who's the Tuk candidate for National Party. Kia ora, Catherine, and welcome to the show. Yeah.
Kia ora, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
Now, Catherine, you've been the nominated candidate for National for a little while now, but obviously the Cyclone changed everything. How do you move from it's a difficult situation as a candidate because you want to help people, but you also want to campaign. How do you move between the two kind of thing?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I was selected as the candidate 12 weeks ago, and we came out of the blocks pretty fast, getting out there and just getting in front of as many people as we could straight away, just to let them know that there was a National Party candidate here in Tuki. But then, of course, the cyclone happened, and that was literally a couple of weeks later, and so that changed everything. I come from the horticulture sector. I was working at Bostock, New Zealand at the time, so I got out really, really fast the second day, and I saw the impact firsthand, and I could see, the devastation and understand the huge impact that the cyclone had on our region. So from there, basically, it was just about getting out and understanding and meeting as many people as I could and listening and making sure that we understand what's happened to families, to orchardists, to farmers across the region so that we can advocate when the time's right.
So this has been an election campaign for you, or how do you get the balance right? Because some people might accuse you of just simply electioneering rather than while people are sort of in strife and that. How do you get that balance right?
That's a really good question. First and foremost, I think it's just about getting out there and connecting with as many people as you can and understanding what's happening on the ground. And as I said, I'm in the horticulture sector, so very early on I was talking to growers, I was understanding the impact on their orchards, on their crops, and could see very early on that it was huge. And so on the third day, I organised a bit of a stand-up for the growers, which I think you were at, and invited all of the media along. And a lot of authorities, the mayor came along as well, because communication was really, really hard at that time. But it was really, really important for the growers in our horticulture sector to send a really powerful message out there that, this was big and, we needed some support, so a lot of support for our region. And, you need to show that early on. And so I organised that and, just tried to work with as many people and help where I could. I was out with the Rural Support Trust helping get supplies out to rural communities. I was, went along to all the public meetings to understand exactly what was going on. I was just trying to connect with as many people as I could so that I can understand exactly what's going on, because this rebuild and recovery is going to take a long time, and it's important that we're at the forefront.
Because that is also a tricky situation. You were in the beginning, your narrative was that it's bad for growers, apple growers and things like that. But not all apple growers were affected, and obviously there's the fine balance between not scaring off international markets and that, saying that it's all doom and gloom. Do you think you got that right? Because, obviously there were some devastated people, there were some that weren't affected.
No, that's a really good question, but at the end of the day, we had 50% of our orchards here in Hawke's Bay impacted in some way, shape or form. And for some, it was entire orchards, for others, it wasn't so much. But at the same time, we've got a lot of crop that is beautiful export quality crop that we are exporting to the world, and we also wanted to send that powerful message out to the customers as well. And so we actually, a lot of growers got their customers here in a few weeks after the cyclone to show them that there were actually crops that weren't affected. But the crops that were affected, it's huge. It's millions and millions of dollars. And the latest figures that have come out is showing $1.5 billion to the industry, to the horticulture industry. That's huge. And so, that needs some support, and we need support from the government for this region. Yeah.
Now, obviously, you're not the MP, you would say yet, but you're not the MP now. What can you actually do to help people in your role? Can you do any more than say, I can?
Oh, I think that I'm able to listen and advocate when the time's right, but it's really important at the start that, you're not making it about the politics and you're not politicising things, and we were really, really careful not to do that. But now it's all about the politics. People want direction, they want decisions, they want to know. So, you know, we need to be able to stand up for them. So we need to understand exactly what's going on. But also I've got really good connections within the National Party. We've had our leader of the National Party, Christopher Luxon, here 3 times now in the last 10 weeks. We've had our deputy leader here. We've had many MPs come through, our agriculture spokesperson, our mental health spokesperson, Jerry Brownlee, who's in charge of the emergency management for the National Party. And so, you know, they were all able to understand, and then now they can advocate in Parliament as well. And so that's really important. So yes, I think that getting out there, being present, listening, understanding, and then being able to advocate when the time's right is really important. But also understanding what's happening on the ground with our local authorities as well, and working closely with the mayors of our region. So I've met with all of the mayors, Sandra, Alex and Kirsten, and just making sure that, you know, those councils are being supported as well, and the regional council as well. So, you know, I think it's a collaborative team effort, and it's important that we're out there understanding and advocating.
Now, what do you think about the money that has been offered to growers and that by government and do you think it will be enough, and should there be some sort of private sort of equity or funding that helps these growers?
Well, I think at the start it was really important to get money out the door, and that happened quickly with the farmers. There was $10,000 given, and then for the growers there was $2,000 a hectare up to $40,000. That was great, and that was really welcomed. But then there's been radio silence ever since, and there's been no indication of extra funding, extra support and any direction, and that's where there's now a lot of frustration. And I've said $1.5 billion to the horticulture sector, and the industry has got together and put together a proposal which was presented to the government I think 65 days ago, so quite a long time ago, and yet there's been no action, and they've seen no direction. And just yesterday we saw the Prime Minister come out and say that there's between $9 to $14 billion worth of damage here in the region. They've got a budget announcement in a few weeks, and surely they know how much they've got in the tank there to be able to give to our region to support it getting back on its feet. So just some direction or just some indication would be really good, because there's just so many people sitting in limbo at the moment. And it's so important for a lot of these businesses. They need certainty and security, and they need to know, can they replant the trees? You know, should they be replanting the crops? You know, there's the seasonal cycles. There needs to be some indication, and it's just taking too long.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned Christopher Luxon, the National Party leader. He was down here and he was selling the party's farming policy. And he said that by cutting red tape, farmers would be able to get back to farming. And as you know, I mean, a lot of farmers and growers aren't farming or growing because they're dealing with the devastation of the cyclone. What else is your party doing? I mean, it's all very well to say get back to farming, but how are you actually helping them do that?
Well, and this is what this announcement was about last week. It was our agriculture policy, where we introduced 19 new policies there. And as you say, a lot of that was about, you know, getting rid of the red tape, because at the moment it's really hard for farmers to farm, for growers to grow, and for our primary industries to get ahead, because they've just got so much red tape, so much compliance, major labour shortages, and you know, they can't get the wheels going in the business, and we can't be growing our region, and we can't be providing jobs and opportunities for everyone. So, you know, we are going to make sure that we're going to make it easier to farm, easier to grow, and easier to do business, and that's what we need. I mean, just the other day I was out with a farmer and he said, oh, I now need to get a consent to put a culvert in on the farm. I mean, that's just extreme, you know, and it just, with all of that compliance, it's just creating bottlenecks, and it's just making it very difficult.
But my point is that the wheels aren't turning anyway because of the cyclone. So what is your party doing to get people in a position where they can take advantage of your policies, if they do come in, of cutting the red tape? I mean, now they're not even farming, some of them. I mean, some of those people at that meeting that you were at, I spoke to, and they said their farms are destroyed, you know.
Yeah, and their farms are destroyed. There's a huge amount of erosion. There's, kilometres of fencing down. There's tracking that's been wiped out. Some people lost stock. It's been really, really difficult for farmers and really, really appreciate that. But one thing about the rural communities is that they rallied together, they united, they get on with the job, and that's what farmers do. And we need to allow them to be able to do that. And yes, the government gave $10,000 at the start, but we need to see now more support, and what we can do currently right now is put some pressure on and ensure that we're advocating for those rural communities, for those farmers, and make sure that they get the support they need, because also there's issues around mental health as well. And we had Matt Ducey, our MP and spokesperson for mental health, down not so long ago, and it's really important that we are out there supporting those rural communities in that sense too.